Welcome to Music Crush, a new music podcast hosted by the Flute New Music Consortium. I'm Nicole Reiner.
And I'm Elizabeth Robinson.
And announcing FNMC Presents, an album of previous commissions and competition winners performed by members of the Flute New Music Consortium. Repertoire includes works by Sean O'Pebolo, Joseph Hallman, Becca Sims, Cherie Slider, and others. Purchase a copy today. All proceeds go directly to FNMC. Flute New Music Consortium, Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Your contributions are tax deductible to the extent allowed by the law. Visit www.flutenewmusicconsortium.com for details. Today, we are so excited to catch up with Lauren McCall, a composer and educator from Atlanta, Georgia. She studies music technology at the Georgia Institute of Technology and is an alum of the Vermont College of Fine Arts, where she studied music composition. Lauren is also an active music educator, developing curriculum for the websites EarSketch and TunePad through her graduate research assistantship at Georgia Tech. Lauren has had compositions performed around North America and in Europe. And we got to know her back in 2020 when she served as our composer in residence for FNMC's inaugural composer mentorship. The resultant pieces from that program are Fantasy for solo flute and Moods of Movement for flute and cello. Lauren, welcome to Music Crush. It's so good to see you.
Great to see both of you. It's good to talk to you after a little while.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking back fondly on you and I did some work together on Fantasy. And those Zoom sessions were so fun. I can't believe it was 2.5 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long.
Wow. Time has flown.
Yeah, it has. And you look like you've been very busy. So what have you been up to since we worked together?
I've been continuing to write new pieces. I'm also started teaching computer music at one of the local colleges here in Atlanta. So just continuing to work on my teaching skills and my composition skills.
Cool. How has it been is this your first time teaching at the college level?
We did a practicum last year. So I got to teach for the laptop orchestra class and for a brain music class, but now I get to teach computer music.
Cool. Laptop orchestra, that sounds awesome.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. And I've been really enjoying my first year teaching.
Great. It's a challenging time. Is your department feeling good about the number of students they have and their energy level?
I've been teaching non-music majors, but at this college is Spelman, and so the numbers of students hasn't been a huge amount because of probably because of the pandemic and everything that's happened. Right. But they're definitely expanding the programs, adding music technology. So it's really a lot of really good stuff going on there.
Cool. Since we're talking about teaching, this is not your first time in the teaching rodeo. If I remember correctly, you also have a Bachelor of Music Education, and you've spent some time teaching pre-college before going back to grad school. Tell us about that life.
That was a lot of fun. I would teach with some local nonprofits like the Atlanta Music Project and teach at some local music schools. So I would work with students from like elementary to young adult age, and mainly teaching either like piano, clarinet, or composition.
Like, was it like lessons?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Like piano was like up to intermediate levels. I'm not a hugely great piano player, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, cool. Do you keep in touch with any of your old colleagues from those places?
I keep in touch with a couple of people. I keep in touch with some of the directors and some of the teachers, and they just let me know how things are going. They let me know some of the different ways they try to retain students and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, interesting. So that leads me to my next question. I mean, not that I expect you to have all the answers, but I feel like we're all puzzling over this right now. Are you and your friends talking about, the challenges that music education at any level faces? Do you have any thoughts on the challenges that our profession is looking at right now, or maybe looking at down the road?
Some of the challenges I've been really thinking about, especially at Georgia Tech. Well, at Georgia Tech, I'm a graduate research assistant, and we are developing some curriculum that's going to be used in actual schools here in the public school sector. So some of the things we've been talking about a lot is, a lot of times if you have like a classical music background, you may not get as much tech like skills. And
Right.
so we're developing like a music curriculum that involves computer science so people can code music and stuff. But some of the teachers have kind of looked at us like we're crazy, like, no, I'm not doing this.
Oh, yeah.
We maybe have had to approach computer science teachers. So that's definitely been a big divide, in addition to making sure, like, how do you tailor curriculum for schools that have different types of resources? Like,
Oh, yeah.
one school district might have really awesome studios for their students. They might get a lot of good funding for their schools, while another school district might not have all those resources. So how can you build curriculum so it can fit both areas?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I bet in any big city, you really see a
Mhm.
vast disparity between schools and neighborhoods.
That's for sure. And the way we've been approaching it is like trying to find out what resources do all these schools tend to have in common.
Mm.
um Try to start off with that, and if students have like the really extra cool stuff, then great, that can be added to the curriculum, but starting with like the least common denominator for all of them.
Yeah, that seems smart. And then you have like an a la carte menu you can add on to.
Hmm.
That's so disappointing, but not surprising to hear about music teachers who just don't want to learn the new stuff and learn how to teach it. I wonder if there's any way to create some kind of workshop, there at Georgia Tech that music teachers could go to if they're interested, but just feeling intimidated to
I
get more
think
of them
that's
on
a great
board.
idea. I think that's a really great idea. And just with our curriculum, also communicating with the educators and making sure it doesn't feel like we're trying to force computer science into
Yeah,
a music class, and how to have the like creativity with music, but still connecting with computer science. So that's
right.
been interesting.
Yeah, I suppose people, yeah, you always have to be careful not to make, more veteran teachers feel criticized, but
Mhm.
that curriculum is one that they've done for so long maybe and are so married to. That's a good challenge and a reminder for us all not to atrophy. I'm making a mental note for myself because I'm the oldest one here. Well, let's talk about some of your compositional work, Lauren. So, as part of your mentorship with FNMC 2.5 years ago, holy
Oh my
cow,
gosh.
you got one lesson each from composers Carter Pan and Sean O'Peblo, and
Yeah.
then you also got some website coaching from the British composer Alex Ford. And I should say, all three of these composers are kind of in our, FNMC family. Carter was one of our large scale commissions. Sean won the composition competition back in 2016, and I don't remember the year, but Alex won soon after that, I think.
I think
Um,
2018.
2018, yeah,
I
that makes
think.
sense. I'll correct it in the show notes if it's wrong. So kind of bringing you into the FNMC composer family fold, I guess, with these sessions. This is an unfairly general question. Do with it what you want. But what
Yeah.
were some of your big takeaways from each of those sessions with each composer?
One thing I really loved about working with Alex was, I'm not really big in building out beforehand. I wasn't big in building my website. I
Mhm.
wasn't big on social media. And I really liked how he mentioned, in the past, there weren't necessarily the websites, but now you can be your biggest advocate. You can put your stuff out there, you can really promote your stuff. And so he really gave me some great feedback, some great insight into building my website. So that was extremely helpful.
Nice.
I really liked working with Carter because he helped me to expand my ideas. He definitely encouraged me to play around with the musical motives and themes that I had. He gave me some feedback on flute techniques that I can incorporate into the piece for fantasy. That was very helpful.
Hmm.
And also with Sean, he definitely encouraged me to see how I could kind of he also did help me with a lot with expanding the musical ideas I had. Um, he didn't want me to really like stick to the bare minimum that I had, but he was really challenged me to see what could I make those ideas into. Mhm.
Yeah, I remember you starting out with a lot of different really cool little motives, and I can imagine after you come up with them, editing becomes very difficult to choose the ones you're really going to develop, and then yeah, sort of play around and see how much you can unspool those. But yeah, I can see that definitely happened as those pieces took shape.
Mhm.
I'd love for you to talk us through the pieces, both of these pieces. So let's start with Fantasy, which is for solo flute. It's the first one that you did in the first half of that year. What's the backstory? How should audience members listen to it? Is there anything particular that you would like flutists to know as they're working on it? Spill the tea.
Well, thank you again, Nicole, for being my mentor while I was creating that piece. Your feedback and the other compositions you shared with me were really helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Glad to hear it.
With this piece, I really enjoyed the idea of having like one musical line, but kind of two different feels, like a rhythmic feel and more of a melodic feel to it. And so that's what I was kind of going for with that composition. I will admit I listened to a lot of beatboxing flute when it came to creating that piece. And I just loved that rhythmic texture. And that's what I really wanted to incorporate into fantasy and just seeing like the range, using the range of the flute, using different textures and timbres, and kind of combining them into one voice.
I think I know the answer because I was sort of in the background of the mentorship. But for our listeners, would you or Nicole be willing to share some of the pieces that were flying back and forth as you guys were working on this piece together?
Yes.
You remember? I remember making a playlist for you on YouTube, but holy cow, I don't remember what I put on it anymore.
Oh goodness. It was an excellent playlist, and I still have some of the scores.
I'm sure there was some Elizabeth Brown in there.
Yes.
There was probably some Nicole Chamberlain.
If there was beatboxing, there was definitely Nicole Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Also a really cool piece called Kikako by Julian Monick.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
another FNMC piece.
Yep.
Do you remember what you liked about that, either of you?
I really love the expressiveness. I feel like with that piece, the performer and the composer weren't afraid to like take their time in certain sections. They used different techniques that I felt I wouldn't necessarily think of first off the bat, and really helped to expand my ear and what I could think of when it comes to the flute sonic environment, sonic world.
Yeah, and I remember, I mean, we had an initial discussion or maybe email exchange about your what your just general interests were in the flute. And I remember that extended techniques came up. And so I was looking for scores that I thought were just cool pieces of music, but I was also looking for the widest variety of extended techniques I could shove in front of Lauren so that she could see what they looked like in a score
Sure.
and hear what they sounded like, but not extended techniques that were just being used as like a circus act, but incorporated in an interesting musical way. Of course, we have a wealth of those pieces, so it was more a matter of not sending too many things, but nice. Well, and I definitely remember in getting back to fantasy, I remember that you did end up with a very like rhythmical groove.
Mm-hmm.
In the very beginning of it, it sort of like slowly unfolds, and then we get into this groove, and the groove never goes away. Even when the flutist isn't playing it, you can always still feel that rhythm underlying everything, which I loved. I think it's a great element in the piece. Well, shall we listen?
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Nice, nice. So, Lauren, can you take us through moods of movement in a similar way?
With Moves of Movement, with Emmeline, I started off by thinking about, for a little while, it took me a moment to kind of narrow down what instrumentation to incorporate with the flute. So then we went ahead and went with cello, and I sketched some ideas. I sent them to Emmeline, and then she would play some musical ideas for me and some different techniques she would use. And that definitely helped me to brainstorm about how to expand the themes I wrote. Um, with that composition, I also listened to some different pieces from Argentina.
Mm.
And so that definitely inspired some of the combinations between the flute and the cello. And with the cello, in some parts, it plays as a cello, but in other parts, I thought of it as a guitar a little bit,
Mm.
and how it accompanied the flute.
Nice.
there-
Have you listened to Piazzolla's History of the Tango for it's originally for flute and guitar, but there are
Yes.
performances with cello as well.
Yes, his piece
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nice. Well, let's listen to some of that one.
interested in some of your takeaways from Alex Ford. You mentioned that he talked about sort of different ways you could think of the website as an extension of marketing yourself. Were there any particular takeaways that you would be willing to share?
Yes. One I think about a lot because I have family members who are into visual arts. I also
Mhm.
have friends who are into visual arts. So one thing he's done with his website is he'll commission an artist or like someone that he knows to create artwork for his piece on his website. And so I've reached out to family and friends, and that I'm still in the process of that,
Oh, sure.
but that way I can have them kind of create images or to take photos that could go along really well with compositions that I've written. And I really liked what he mentioned about social media,
Oh,
just really like finding some people who and kind of looking at how do they connect with others on social media? How do they like what are they using to promote their music? And kind of getting some ideas from different people. Um, I'm not the biggest like social media user, but I'm definitely trying to improve on that. So that's been like the biggest challenge for myself. But I really liked the feedback Alex gave me when it came to the organization of my website. Um, Making sure people have a way to contact me and
yeah.
even just linking social media right there on the website. So that way people can check out different things.
Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite flavor of social media? I know it's so personal to sort of everybody's way of interacting with the world and the medium. Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram more so than Facebook.
Sure.
I'm more active on Instagram.
Okay, that's good to know.
Mhm. And you can find me under Lauren McCall Music.
Great. We'll add that to the show notes. Well, and your website looks beautiful. I mean, I hadn't looked for a while. It looks really nice, and I think it's really navigable. There's a lot of listening we can do, which is great, and that'll be in the show notes too.
Thank you.
Another interesting piece that I found on your website, which is
Mhm.
so nicely set up now, was called "To Cover You." I thought it was great. Could you tell us about it?
This is a piece, it's a graphic score composition. And I decided to use Adinkra symbols. They're from West Africa, and they are symbols that are like connect to sayings, they connect to just really deep, meaningful things. And so these symbols, you can find them on clothing, you can find them in architecture, many different areas. And so this was a piece that I worked on with the Fresh Ink Festival.
Mm.
And our theme was education. So I took a couple of different symbols that connected with the theme of education. And I used those symbols as the graphic images for the composition. This is for open instrumentation. And I had three musicians play this piece. I had a bassist, flutist, and a clarinetist. And so with this piece, like, let me give you an example. Like, the first movement is based off of the symbol of Nia Onim, and it means when he who does not know learns, he gets to know. And so I would use different colors, different developments of these symbols, and then I would have really good discussion with the musicians, and they would give me feedback and they would actually decide how they would go about developing the musical ideas based on these symbols for each movement. It was a lot of
Oh.
fun to work on.
Did your musicians express any challenges making sense of the score? Did you need to kind of teach them how to make sense of that graphic notation?
Yes, they at first
I would need
they were not too happy with me. And,
that.
like they wanted something more definitely more finely notated, and so this involved a lot of improvisation. Um,
Mhm.
so let me give one example that they really developed together really, really well. there's one symbol called matimasi. I understand, or what I hear, I keep. So for this, they would improvise on their own at home, kind of thinking about some different ideas, looking at the colors, thinking about the meaning of those. And then we would all meet together and like maybe one musician would start playing. And then maybe another musician would kind of riff off of what the first musician was playing, and they would kind of use that meaning to develop their music together.
And did you have any advice for them if they were feeling stuck or feeling like, oh, I don't improvise, I don't even know how to get started with this? Or just for anybody who's listening, do you have any advice on how to just dive into the deep end?
I like to start off by thinking about any compositions that they really enjoy playing. And I know everyone has some pieces that they've kind of memorized in their head a little bit.
Yeah.
Take some of those ideas, kind of riff off of those a little bit as a starting point, and definitely expand on those. And if they're using like a graphic score or an improvisation, they could think about different elements of the score, like are there high elements, are there low elements, how can that be applied to the music they're playing? If there's a change of color, how would a theme that you enjoy playing sound in a different mood? um and definitely just jumping off the deep end and just give it a shot, even if they may feel like, hey, this does not sound great. Just try it at first. If you don't like it, you can toss it away and keep trying a couple more ideas and record yourself and see, what do I really like?
Oh, those are great ideas. I'm gonna try all of that.
Hmm.
Because I'm definitely one of those people who gets a little skittish, but then I hear these cool pieces and I want to be part of it too. So that's really
Yes.
helpful. Thank you.
Is the graphic notation something you've been doing for a while, or was that something that you decided to experiment with at this festival and collaboration?
That's something I've been doing for a little bit.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll have like images as the graphic score. Sometimes I'll have text involved with the graphic score. And sometimes I'll even use graphic symbolism in extended reality. That's been a lot of my research here at Georgia Tech. Like I developed a graphic score creation space where
Oh,
people can use key codes on their keyboard and they can create different symbols in a 3D space. It could be virtual or it could be immersive or non-immersive. And then musicians can play it off of their computer, or they can play it with like the VR goggles on.
Oh, wow.
And
ooh, cool.
it provides a new perspective on like a score space.
That's very much a world that I don't exist in, and most of your pieces that I'm familiar with are more based in traditional notation. How do you decide sort of which direction you're going to go in, or what's appropriate for the sounds that you're planning in your head?
I was really interested. Well, I'm just curious to know, how is meaning shaped based off of like looking at a sheet of music versus, will a meaning change if they're in a virtual space? Like if you can walk around the score or you can walk in between the notes and the symbols in the score, how will that change the meaning of a graphic score? So that's something I'm really curious about. Those are questions I'm always asking. And I know there's no um, exact answer. And that's what I love about it.
So the music technology part of your webpage is a little mind-boggling to me as a flutist. In layman's terms, can you describe some of your work in that area?
Yes, some of it's involved the extended reality. One other project that I did with Laptop Orchestra, it involved creating some digital instruments. And so with this class, it was cool because I got to work with students and we got to use project-based learning. So I designed the instruments and like how it worked, but then we paired it with this virtual modular synthesizer called VCV Rack, and students sound designed the different instruments. And then like they could, I'll have to see if I could send you all an image of what some of the instruments look like.
Ooh.
They can press the instruments, different like beams or notes, and then it'll start playing, and then it'll play the sound design from the virtual modular synthesizer. And we had a whole laptop orchestra of students playing these instruments, and we had a graphic score for them to perform off of. One other project, it involves developing plugins for like digital audio workstations like Ableton. And with that project, I built a map-based plugin where someone can go online and they can click different locations on a map, and this would change the sound design and the spatialization of the music playing in Ableton. It was
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of fun.
So back in the sort of compositional realm, what's on your workbench right now?
Right now, I'm about to start my dissertation. So I'm working on my dissertation proposal, and this is going to involve um, a composition for 2 percussionists and 2 pianists.
Ooh.
And so I'm still really brainstorming on different themes and ideas for that. But also, I'm working on a collaboration with the American Composers Forum,
Awesome.
and this is a piece for percussion ensemble and musicians of different ability levels. And so we're going to have a couple of professional musicians, a pre-college group, and a more like a map program. And so I'm going to write music that's geared for each different level so they can enjoy playing music together.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Do you have a sense of when or where that will be available for public consumption, or is it too early to say? Too
I
early.
Yes, it's too
Okay.
early.
We remember grad school. Sometimes it's too early. So much of what you talk about has such an educational bent, or I'm hearing it as advocacy, advocacy for maybe less seasoned players to get to play with more seasoned players, and that piece,
Yes.
advocacy for technology. What do you have any sort of overarching desires for the students who consume some of these projects that you're developing? Like, what do you really want kids in the classroom, for instance? I mean, you could turn this question into something else if you want, to get from the technological work that you're doing with them.
I want to create stuff that brings out their creativity. Um, that's I love creating music. I love making music, and I want students that I work with to be able to enjoy creating music and making music too. And I try to build systems, whether it's a VR space, whether it's a digital instrument, whether it's a graphic score or piece of music that's notated, and I want them to be able to express themselves musically and hopefully create some music that, or a system or something that they can enjoy playing.
Nice. Do you care if they do this professionally? I mean, do you have in your mind, oh, these, hopefully these students will want to go on and major in music, or is that not even a part of it for you?
Well, I love it when I meet students who I can tell they can do music for the rest of their lives for sure. I could tell that they maybe want to be a musician. But I also enjoy when I meet students who may not be music majors or may not do music in their future. And I think music is wonderful for people. It's just a joy. It's just a joy. And I feel like it's something everybody can really enjoy. And they don't have to be a professional or music major in order to do that.
Yeah, because I think, when I think about how long it took me to make a consumable sound that was in the least bit acceptable for public hearing on flute, right? Or any of our instruments, clarinet for you, that was your first instrument, right? It's so daunting, but so many of the things that you're describing sound like it could take that out of the equation and just allow people to explore their creativity and for their own personal joy without having to practice scales for 6 or 7 years to get there, which is great, actually.
And I'm hoping that, like, even if they may not major in music, I hope that maybe they'll be in a band and they'll do something on the side, or they'll keep writing music, something to keep them involved in music.
That's
Or go
wonderful.
somewhere else and make new laptop orchestras. I'm so
Yes.
fascinated with the concept. I love it.
Quick note from Elizabeth. We had some connectivity issues here, and you missed Nicole asking Lauren what she's listening to now.
So one piece I've really enjoyed is by Eleanor Alberga, her string quartet number 2. This piece is a little bit older, I believe, but it's my first time hearing it, and I really enjoyed this composition. Mhm. And I also, I'm pretty sure this piece is possibly reggaeton. Um, it's by Rosalia Sayoko.
Oh,
So it's got some Latin rap in it, but it's a really
yay.
good piece.
Nice.
And another piece I've really enjoyed is Steve Reich's. I've been listening to a lot of percussion pieces. Steve
Sure.
Reich's
Sure.
music for 18 musicians.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed that piece.
Nice. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for catching up with us.
Yeah.
Yes, it was great talking with you all.
Yeah, we're excited to see where you keep going from here, and we will keep in touch and keep watching your activities online.
And you all have to keep me updated with things that you're working on too.
Oh, sure.
We sure will. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Music Crush. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also support the podcast, read show notes, and learn more about FNMC by visiting www.flutenewmusicconsortium.com.